tying the noose knot is almost exactly like tying the simple slip knot. Hello fellow knot tiers, I'm Neka. There are many knots that look virtually the same, but the small differences in those knots make them completely different knots. If you put the simple slip knot and the noose knot together side by side, they look virtually the same. Look at these two knots. Are you able to tell what makes them fundamentally different? The difference is for a simple slip knot, it's the working end that slides. And in a noose knot, the working end does not slide. It is the running end that slides. Both of these knots consist of an overhand knot that wraps around the opposite portion of the rope, creating loops. The simple slip knot, it is the working end that comes through the overhand to create the loop. Our running end comes up into the overhand knot and then into the loop. So you can think about it in the way that our running end side is tied around the working end side. So it is our working end that slides through the overhand knot. For the noose knot, our working end comes into the overhand and then turns into part of the loop, and the other side of our loop is our running end. So you can think of it like our working end side is tied around the running end side. So our running end is what moves through the middle of the overhand knot. So to create our simple slip knot, we create a loop. Our working end comes behind the loop. We pinch that working end and we cinch down. Now to tie the noose knot is almost virtually the same. We're going to create an underhand loop and we're going to bring our running end behind the loop. We're going to pinch, we're going to grab our working end and our running end, and we do have to kind of push this down a little bit, and then we're going to cinch everything down. We now have a noose knot. The simple slip knot is a good stopper knot. But if you were to try to do that same stopper knot with a noose knot, your knot comes undone. And for a slip knot, if you put a stopper knot on the end of the working end, you can create the partially fixed loop. If you don't have the stopper knot and loop it over an object and pull, the knot will come undone. If you put a stopper knot on the working end of a noose knot, you actually create an arbor knot. Mostly meant for fishing and putting line on reels. Because the noose knot, when put around an object and pulled tightly, that loop cinches down. And for the arbor knot, this stopper knot will prevent the fishing line from pulling through the original overhand, and if you have a fish on there, it won't be able to pull the line off your reel. The fact with this noose knot, if put over an object and the running end is pulled, it tightens down. And it can tighten down very much. The harder you pull, the tighter that little loop gets. And that's a very important difference to understand between the two knots. One has little ability to, say, cause harm. This knot has a very distinctive ability to cause harm, because if it was put around my finger, pulled tight enough, I might have a lot of trouble actually loosening this knot to get my finger out. That's where you can slip the noose knot, making it a slipped knot, helping to untie it much easier. In my opinion, the easiest way to tie a slipped noose knot is to create our noose knot by creating an underhand loop, feeding our running end behind, pinching, grabbing our working and running ends. We're going to push this knot down a little bit and cinch down. Now I kind of cinched it down all the way, but all you have to do is kind of loosen it up a little, or don't tighten it all the way while you're tying it. And just like creating the simple slip knot, where we feed that working end back through the knot, we're going to feed that working end back through the overhand that creates the noose knot. We're going to feed that working end back through the overhand, and then we're going to tighten everything back down. So you have your overhand and then the slipped knot. We have our overhand that creates the noose knot, but we also have the overhand that is the slipped knot portion. So now you have a slipped noose knot, so that when you put it over something, it tightens all the way down, and you have trouble loosening it or getting it untied. You can grab that working end, pull on it, and it will undo that noose knot. And a lot like the simple slip knot, you can also create the noose knot by creating a bite and a loop. Except for the noose knot, you create the loop in the working end and the bite in the running end. And it's the same process of taking that loop, looping it over the bite, pulling your working end, and then kind of tightening that knot. You've created the noose knot. And much like the simple slip knot, you can turn the noose knot into an Englishman's knot using a very different process. First, we're going to find the portion of the rope that comes directly out of our overhand, not the sliding portion of the rope. And we're going to take the portion of the rope that comes out of the knot, and we're going to twist it so it crosses over the sliding portion of the rope. So the rope that comes out of the knot is in front, the sliding portion of the rope is behind. Now we're going to take our two fingers and we're going to feed them through that top loop. And we're going to bend back and pinch the rope that comes out of the knot. We're going to take this loop and we're going to push it down so it's kind of on top of this knot. And we're going to hold it there. And the rope we're pinching, we're going to pull on it and pull and feed all that extra rope into this top loop. And then at some point you can let go, grab the 2 pieces of rope above this knot and cinch down. And then you'll be able to grab your running end, grab your loop, pull them, and you have the Englishman's knot. If you want to tie a noose knot and make sure it only gets small to a point, you can tie a stopper knot into your noose knot. For me, the best way to do this is judge about how big you want your loop to be. So we'll say, I want my loop to be about this big, but I need a little extra rope to tie the actual knot with. So I'm going to bring another inch or 2 out into that loop. And where my working end touches my running end, I'm going to tie an overhand knot right there. So I kind of always hold the point, create a loop, bring my working end through that loop, and we're going to cinch down these ropes at my fingers. This is where I like creating the bite and the loop style of creating the noose knot, because then I can just take the knot, take the loop, feed that knot through the loop, and I'm going to tighten down my overhand by pushing it down the working end. And if that still seems a little too long, you can just feed some of the extra rope through the knot, tighten it down some more. And now when you go to put your noose knot around something and it cinches, it's going to hit your stopper knot and it won't be able to cinch down anymore. You can also tie it by creating your loop. When you drop down your running end, make sure your knot is about within the loop. Pinch your knot, grab your working and running end, push that knot down a little, and cinch down. Then you'll be able to put it around an object, pull, that stopper knot will stop it. And you can tie the noose knot around an object by coming around your object and tying an overhand knot around the running end. One reason I do like to show how to create a bite and a loop to create the simple slip knot or the noose knot is because you can create that in the middle of a rope easily by creating the loop and the bite, feeding your bite through the loop, and cinching down. So then you don't have to deal with pulling an entire piece of rope through a loop if you're working with a long rope. Putting a noose or a slip knot, since building them in the middle of the rope makes them pretty much exactly the same. And by creating a noose knot in the middle of the rope, it allows you to, say, maybe hang something up and just have a random little spray bottle, but you're able to cinch it down within your line of rope. And then we could create another one over here. Maybe I'll put my flashlight in that one and cinch it down. And you could hang up a bunch of stuff with a noose knot. But then it's nice because you can just pull them out of the knot, pull on both sides, and that knot comes undone. So it makes for a good temporary cinching loop when made in the middle of the rope by creating the bite and the loop and feeding that bite through the loop. So even though two knots can look exactly the same and pretty much be exactly the same, depending on small differences can make a world of difference in how that knot is used and the precautions that may be needed. Happy tying! Peace!